Cut-ins that we're using here on 6 News from NBC programming. They've kind of given this back to us. We've got an interactive map behind us, and I've got Dr. Robert Tennant, an assistant professor at Texas A&M Central Texas, who specializes in numbers. So this kind of stuff you can geek out on. You really enjoy this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're getting some early results, Doctor, and I'm telling you, it's really interesting with nearly 1.5 million votes in for Abbott already, and for O'Rourke, he's at 1.3 million. But I'm seeing a couple of big things when I look at our map. One, the Houston area has not responded.
Correct.
And then secondly, as far as where Beto will be in El Paso tonight, these were all blue. And I want to show everybody, so as they're looking at the map right now, basically what we saw in the 2020 presidential election when Donald Trump went in. You saw a border that was very blue.
Correct.
And then also Houston. Tarrant County went for Beto O'Rourke, which was a real surprise. But Dallas County being even bluer, not that much of a surprise. But there's your I-35 corridor as well for San Antonio and Austin. So are you seeing any surprises tonight when we go back to the governor's race this evening right now behind the scenes here, and we see that Abbott has jumped out to an early lead? Because if you'll recall, in 2018, it took a come-from-behind victory, if you could call that, by Senator Cruz to come back and defeat Beto, who had jumped out to a big lead.
Right. In 2018, it was not decided until the very last moments of counting, whereas barring those several places that aren't yet come in,
right,
the numbers are definitely favoring early the governor, which is different than it was in 2018.
And do you think people are more polarized to vote at the top of the ticket? Because look at what we have here for governor. We've got 1.5 million votes right now, but when we jump down to lieutenant governor, boom, we see 1.2 million votes right now for Dan Patrick, and Collier with a much closer race right now with the same counties that are reporting.
I think that what causes that is that when people focus on the top of the ticket, whether it be a governor race or a presidential election,
right,
so what they do is they make sure they know about that candidacy. But when it comes to other ones like lieutenant governor or further down the ballot, they might not know, so they choose not to vote at all.
And again, we're talking about statewide races that have not been won, by a Democrat really since Ann Richards won governor. So you're talking about Senate races and gubernatorial races, and then Attorney General. Let's take a look at this one as well for Ken Paxton, for races that really have not gone Democrat in a long, long time. And again, we have another close race here.
And if you look at the numbers, the 1.2 million and the just under 1.2 million numbers, those are consistent with the previous graphic we showed, and substantially less than the top of the ticket at the governor level.
So what you're seeing right now is the state of Texas was a lot more energized to be voting for the governor.
Yes, the governorship so far with the voting that's reported seems that way.
I'd like to go back to the Senate race for 2018 because this was kind of fun to talk about. Look at our border here.
Wow.
Solid blue. And you could pretty much rely on that. And this border went for Beto O'Rourke all the way up, through the El Paso area, where he was a congressman. So he had enough popularity to be selected there. Bell County, where we're standing right now, went pretty red for Ted Cruz.
It did.
You go up north to McLennan County, it's even more red. But you come down just south of Bell County, where we're standing right here, and Williamson County goes to Beto O'Rourke. Do you think that Beto is going to be able to have the kind of sustaining power and the excitability and getting the voter turnout to be able to sustain, what looks like it's going to be a popular, return again in the Central Texas area for Greg Abbott?
I would think that based on the early numbers, that statistically the Central Texas area is going to have a bit more red in it than it did in the previous elections.
So by that case, we could say it's even trending. Well, a lot of people thought Texas becoming a purple state. It's even trending maybe a little bit more red. We had the abortion ruling and the Dodds case, which sent the abortion ruling Roe v. Wade back to the states for a decision. And we know Texas had some very conservative abortion laws already in place, and those went into effect. But then you have the economy weighing as one of the major percentages in this election. Right.
I saw polling that made it a top issue for just under 90% of the people.
90%, 89%, 87%?
It was 89% that I saw. And it was like maybe 45% were extremely important and the remainder being very important. So it's significantly important to our Central Texans as well as fellow Americans, because we're facing challenges when we go to the pump and when we go to the grocery store. Every American's feeling it to some degree.
On a daily basis.
Yes.
Do you think that perhaps, and again, this is just an opinion for you, but the Dodds case and the ruling coming in summer, but inflation being there every day and talked about tremendously up to the markup of the election today, is more in people's sights, minds, thoughts on a daily basis?
I think part of it is that inflation affects everybody's point of view, whether you're right or left, whereas the abortion issue seems to be focused more by one group than the other.
It's a good point. More of a polarizing issue.
It is. It's more of a, so it being a wedge issue, it's not going to draw out people as a sole issue like the economy.
Just since we've been checking these maps and refreshing, it looks like Bell County has gotten us some numbers in. Let's jump in here and take a look at this. So it's still pretty red. This is a very similar indication of what we're seeing right now for Greg Abbott, that we saw 32,000, almost 33,000 voters went for Abbott. These are early voting numbers that we're seeing right now because the poll just closed 7 minutes ago.
These are not the total numbers. These
not
are
even close.
These are the first numbers that have been thrown up to us.
But this tells you that the pulse of the energy for people who wanted to get out and early vote broke for Greg Abbott.
Yes.
When we're told in the past many times that early voters will break Democrat for whatever reason.
Historically, that is true.
Okay. Okay, very interesting. And then anything right now off this map surprise you a little bit? Look, we're pretty pink and red here, and we're showing a lot of pink and red here. A lot of these counties we've talked about that appear to have gotten a little more conservative. Now, the Uvalde County, we've talked about that a lot. Let me bring back the full map, because guns, of course, have been such a major issue, and
it's one of the big 5 issues.
It looks like Uvalde is still going to be, pretty red as far as locally there from the numbers that they've given us tonight and are reporting. Not a lot of votes, but again, a nice percentage, over a 10-point lead in that county for Greg Abbott.
It's quite a split.
Yeah, interesting. And again, 1% and 1%, you don't think this is going to be any kind of factor in the election?
No, I'm glad there are more candidates.
Yes.
Because it gives people more options. But I would be surprised if they moved up into a significant number.
Interesting. So we're just waiting on McLennan County numbers for everyone, and I want to show you where did Ted Cruz win this election in his come from behind effort in 2018? Where do we change the timeline right here from what to Mountain Time from Central, and you can see out here when you get out west, it's pretty solid Republican.
There's a lot more red the other side of the time zone.
Incredible, minus El Paso, of course.
Right.
Which let's see how O'Rourke's doing right now in his home field, where he's at tonight and where we'll be hearing from him later. So 64%, it's a pretty strong showing, but again, probably a number he wanted to see more like 75% for the former congressman.
Correct. I would think that everywhere that's blue, he'd want to see bigger numbers.
Okay. Speaking of which, I'm glad, before we say goodbye on this little hit right here, Dallas County. Let's go right there and see where that number is for him. 64%, again. Let's look at Dallas County right now and see how they broke
in 2018.
You want to do that for Senate?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do 2018, Dallas County, 66%. So he's right on par, which means he didn't pick up any more votes that he's going to need to pick. He needs votes from somewhere, right?
Right.
If he's going to show better than he did against Cruz in 2018.
So the warm markets, the places that typically vote for the Democrat, need to break for a Democrat to win.
He knew it was a difficult race coming in. Tarrant County, also, by the way, it went blue for the first time, Fort Worth and company, since, I don't know, in a long time, a lot of election action. Let's look at tonight before we say goodbye right now for the governorship. Tarrant County is not blue right now. Looks like Tarrant County might have swung back the other direction.
It's still pretty 50-50, but which is still
enough to make it a light shade of pink.
Yes.
But again, we were just talking about Beto O'Rourke. He can't afford to hemorrhage any votes from where he did in 2018, correct?
He needs to be stronger everywhere.
Stronger everywhere. Okay. Very good. Your insight is fantastic. Dr. Robert Tennant, he's going to be with us all evening. If you want to join us for our 10 o'clock news, he'll be live on with us as well to talk about these kinds of things, and we'll look inside some of these numbers. Again, we're going to have another hit live if you want to join us on 6 Plus or on our YouTube channel, however you're watching us, whether it's Roku or Fire Stick. We're glad you found us here on the digital side of things. We'll be back with a couple more visits as we learn more about what's going on, and maybe we even talk about some local races as well. That should be interesting. We've got a couple congressional seats, of course. Every 2 years, Congress, 435 seats are up for grabs.
Every 2 years.
And that's one of those tonight. So this is why a midterm election is so important. So we're going to say goodbye for now from the web. I'll be back on NBC here at 8:27 at the bottom of the half hour to give you the latest about our local races. So have a great evening, everybody. We'll talk again real soon.